Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Peter Gough. I'm managing partner at ORM. We're an agency who specialise in products, platforms and service innovation. And as Louise mentioned, we're part of the Paragon Group. We actually became part of the group last year, even though our agency's been going 20 years. ORM sits within the digital customer experience part of the business. We're currently comprised of 4 agencies. And we're built to offer brands an alternative way to tackle business, technology, and marketing challenges fast. I'm talking to you today about DRUC. This is our digital revenue uplift consultancy. It's a methodology that we use to support our clients with the optimization of their own digital channels. I'm going to speak for 28 minutes, that's all. So I hope you've got a sandwich and a cup of tea or a coffee and having lunch while I go through. But I should be finished in around 30 minutes, so we've got plenty of time for some Q&A. I'm going to speak about why DRUC is relevant, what it is, and then how it applies to you and DRUC in practice. Okay, cool, let's begin. So I thought I'd start here because this is affecting all of us. One thing COVID has taught all of us now is how to operate our business using digital tech. We've seen new behaviours and practices that have emerged, and the culture of presenteeism has vanished. New ways of working have started to appear, even for the most conservative and traditional businesses. For some businesses, this is the tipping point. This is when our digital channels have become the primary channel. For one client, we're seeing their physical locations potentially not opening as they've used this lockdown time to digitize more services and some of their operations. And we're also seeing the need to onboard customers more efficiently. And although this webinar's to talk about the customer-facing channels, I think there's equally important sort of back office layers that need to be optimized to support that sort of front office. We can keep optimizing that front end and digitize some of the processes, but it still can be let down if there's manual processes underneath too. And ORM's speciality isn't traditional e-commerce. When it comes to sort of digital revenue, our customers are more in the traditional sectors. They still have traditional ways of doing business, and that's still prevalent in their business, such as transport. In transport, certainly rail, around 25 to 30% of all tickets are bought online. And that's because it's complex. There's around 65 million different fare variations, which means there's still a huge number of people buying tickets in the manual way. We're working with businesses such as HomeServe, who provide home insurance services, and that's where subscription-based insurance services are provided, and that's through quite a complex online application. And then you've got the traditional banks where there's an urgent need to digitize their services and operations to onboard customers for new accounts or products. And that means that when it comes to our own digital channels, such as our websites, our apps or portals, we need to make sure they're really optimized for conversion, whatever that conversion might be. And over the last 4 to 5 years, we've seen businesses become more digitally mature. A lot of you have taken a customer-focused approach and reimagined your digital channels. And many of us have gone through these transformation programs that address the customer experience. We're integrating more of our business tools and systems across the wider organization, such as CRMs and ERPs, which means there's a lot more data to digest. We've got longer product backlogs and companies are stuck, I suppose, with minimal viable products that are way more complex to optimize due to these integrations and challenges. And transformation isn't quick. It isn't a fixed length of time, it's a constant. At the start of this year, how many of us had actually heard of COVID-19? And if we really had, let's be honest, we were told that it was going to be contained in China and it really wasn't going to impact our society or certainly our businesses. So how many of us were really ready to adapt to change rapidly? My colleague Lorenzo was on the webinar on Friday, and he was talking about transformation, and he mentioned about Microsoft, who are a fairly advanced, albeit huge sort of entity, and they've had to compress 2 years of transformation into 2 months. And I think COVID's taught us that we're now in a race to digitize and optimize too. Which means we've got to change our mindset a bit. Having a sort of rapid way to test new ideas and reveal the most powerful levers to influence purchase behavior is going to be key to finding out where the most impact can happen. And this graphic sort of helps explain how testing and experimentation can form a sort of virtuous cycle. So as more test learnings are collected, the test hypotheses become sharper until the right levers are found and exploited, yielding larger returns and ideally sharpen your hypotheses too. So all of this is the mindset you really need to adopt if you're going to head into an optimization program. Everything I've just mentioned means that nearly everyone who's watching this webinar, you're probably the most valuable people in your organization right now. The digital champions within organizations are, we're going to help drive that growth and the new opportunities. And that's why we created DRUC a few years ago, really, to address these challenges that I mentioned. And most optimization is done through the lens of CX, customer experience, and looking at pain points, or looking purely at the analytics and the factual data. DRUC's a methodology that can provide focus, but also make you take action. So it's about viewing your digital channels through a number of different lenses to make analysis and recommendations to increase your digital revenue or conversions. And DRUC takes a more curated, holistic worldview. It's forensic, it's detailed and results driven, but it's a common sense approach that we believe should take between 4 to 6 weeks. And in its simple form, there's 3 parts. There's an analysis and insight. So looking at your real estate through opposing lenses to find new ideas. There's a recommendations and ROI part, so determining the revenue impact of each idea. And then there's the prioritization roadmap, which for me is probably the most important part. And this is about prioritizing your ideas against your business needs and strategy and coming up with an actionable roadmap. So I'm going to take you through these stages and the activities involved. So if we start with the analysis and insight phase, DRUC's about overlapping the 2 lenses of the quantitative data and the qualitative data. So the lens you see clearly is the quantitative data from your analytics, from your business information, and this gives you the what. And then to the right, we've got the more warm, the more fuzzy, nuanced lens of the qualitative activities, such as your customer research, personas, journeys, and that gives you the why. And then in the middle, hopefully this will work. Look at that. In the middle, we've got a softer focus lens of hybrid activities where factual data is mixed with assumptions and expert opinions, such as trends or market research and surveys, etc. And so we look at a number of key activities through these 2 lenses. So on the left, in the blue, are some of the quant data activities, such as from analytics and BI. So if we start, and these are some of them, they're not all of them, but if we look at the lens of attribution, so what channels are your customers coming through? What devices are customers connecting with you? Do they have different journeys on different devices? Does the time of day or location play a part? The funnel analysis, and I'm going to talk about this a little bit more depth in a moment. How are customers moving through each stage of your funnel? What are the conversion rates and dropouts of them stages? Product types, what pages or products are getting more conversions? And then to the right, in the red, we've got the more qualitative activities, such as your audience research, your customer research, such as who's the potential audience? What's their maturity, their behaviors? Are there other contexts that we need to address? And then things like the competitor research, benchmarking, who's doing it better and why? And then there's a sort of that hybrid bit in the middle where factual data might be mixed with sort of assumptions and expert opinions, such as, I don't know if you use session replay or heat mapping, how are people using your products? You know, are there obvious pain points and potential quick wins that we'll mix with sort of heuristic reviews? What surveys, what feedback are you getting from your customers? Are you running A/B or user testing or multivariate testing to find out what has and hasn't worked? And then things like trends, year-on-year trends. And this is important because obviously there's things such as societal trends, such as COVID, that has impacted our business massively. You know, what other sector analysis or sector trends do we need to consider too? So I'm going to take you through a few of these activities, not all of them, but I've just thought I'd take you through a number just to show where we sometimes like to focus when we're considering these lenses. So funnel analysis is a really good place to start because it helps identify what we believe are the biggest revenue driving opportunities. So here's a typical client funnel. We've anonymized it for this presentation, and it's a simple view like this. Can make it easier to understand. And if you view this through the clear lens of data, and so you can see where the pain points and experiences are of the visitors. And that depends where they've come from, such as direct or through campaigns or through other partners or referrals. And what we're looking at is the proclivity to drop out, what the conversion rates are at each one of them points, could be average transaction value. And you'll find that it tends to be quite different for each. And therefore recommendations can be made, can be different in their impact and their nature. And we might start to look at the attribution across the channels, you know, where the significant changes year on year might be. And some might be due to paid campaigns or your social media activity. And then you're going to map the conversions or the revenue if you can. And in this instance, I don't know if you can see the numbers, but we can see social has got a year on year, a plus 159% impact. But look at the revenue split, that the user's intent to buy is low. So we need to understand the context of that. Such as on the Wi-Fi, we can see a negative 79% year on year. Why is that? And it might have nothing to do with the channel. It might be that people are starting to use their own data, their 4G connections, as it gets more cost effective with people as well. And so this tells us that there's more to this than just looking at that factual data too. And then we start to go into, start to map the conversion rate, the visits, the ATV at each stage through the funnel. In this simplified funnel, we've got a sort of a homepage, you know, of a marketing website, where a product search page, which at some channels might also go direct to. We'll start to map them data points in the funnel to where they are, all the time looking for potential opportunities for optimization and uplift. And these will highlight the biggest revenue opportunities. However, this is only one factor, so some of these points will need to be viewed through them other lenses to validate the hypothesis too. So that's why you need that sort of the more fuzzy lens of the qualitative data and the research activities. And one thing we've seen, certainly over the last 4 to 5 years, is a lot of clients have matured. They've adopted forms they've become more customer centered. They've adopted methodologies and have performed sort of customer research activity in a number of forms. And I'm sure many of you here today have gone through this process of speaking to your customers, doing more first party research. And I'm guessing that most of you now have personas, or you've certainly done them in the last 4 or 5 years. Dig them out, dust them off. You know, if you need to, validate them, update them. These can actually help validate some of that quant data that I mentioned earlier. Do they tell us anything about the audience needs that map back to that data? Can you personalize your experience based on these personas? Are there nuances you see with different persona types? We sometimes talk about modes, not personas. So for instance, you might be in a mode of browsing in one mode, but then the next day you might be in a buying mode, and that applies to planning and booking too. So sometimes you need to consider the modes these personas might be. But you can use your platforms, your channels to profile them due to their behaviors as well. So we're a firm believer that personas can still play a part in the process of optimization. And then we've probably all got some of these, whatever you want to call them, journey maps, experience maps. How often are you referring back to these? I'd hope you've still got them on your walls and they're not covered up with other stuff, because I think these are great artifacts to help people understand the full customer journey. And I believe that, you know, there could be gold hidden in these maps. So, you know, journeys are great because they can help highlight pain points and opportunities throughout the journey or experience, whatever you're trying to resolve. They can support that wider context. They can influence the service design, such as how the backstage processes and interactions support the front stage and customer experience. Have you missed anything? Is there anything missed here that when it comes to driving uplift? So you might find that there's potential marketing tactics or that you can do to help get a potential customer back into the funnel. Or is there any anything here that maps back to that quant data? Because all of this can help, I suppose, get you to the why to validate some of the what that I mentioned earlier too. And the last activity I wanted to talk about today, and sometimes it can be overlooked or not gone into as depth as it should have, and it's that hybrid activity. It's that softer focus in the middle, and it's about competitor sort of benchmarking and research. What's your competitor market doing? Who's doing a really good job, and how are they addressing the challenges? And is there anything we can learn from sectors with similar challenges? Are they using new emergent technologies to support it? Or are there other technologies that we could be using too? So consider that, and don't just pull out the usual suspects. Go broader, beyond your just sector. I pulled out 3 examples here from recent presentations. And of course, you're going to go a little bit more deeper, but I think these are great examples. You've got Lemonade, which is an insurance app, and Lemonade uses self-configuration UI, it's powered through AI as well, and natural language processing, and it's all about simplifying the onboarding process. But if it can't work out that premium, it'll switch to a human operator to help calculate the premium if needs be. Accenture, if your channels don't have conversions on them, but they're part of the process of getting people to speak to you, or that's your conversion funnel, Accenture is a really good example of where I believe, you know, where they've thought about how do we get our thought leadership to attract more sort of potential customers. So they've matched their thought leadership to trusted advisors, and they've matched their services to based on what you're reading, and all of it's about nudging you towards that conversion. And lastly, this is one of ours, Great Western Railway. We're using dynamic landing pages. We're pre-filling forms in based on your location or your search criteria. All it's doing is just helping, it's optimizing them pages to help nudge people through the funnel, all with less friction. Nearly all of them here is about reducing that friction to get them through that conversion part. So DRUC is a synthesis of all of it. It's a mix of heuristic, functional benchmarking, and data-driven revenue uplift analysis. And the output is going to be a number of ideas and hypotheses. And I'm sure many of you have got this in your organisation. I believe a lot of businesses have done a lot of these activities. I think there's great ideas sitting on whiteboards or on virtual post-it notes, on Miro boards, or in Excel spreadsheets waiting to be looked at. So I believe a lot of you have done this. There might be gaps. You might not have considered everything through them lenses. And the thing is, there is so much to look at, and we get it. And it's hard to address everything, and it's really hard to perhaps know where to start and how to create a plan of action. And we have a phrase for this because we see it a lot. We call it analysis paralysis. We get it. There's so much to look at and analyze. It's really hard to know where to start. Don't worry, we have a solution. So you've done that first bit. You've addressed the data from the quant and aligned it and validated it through that softer focus lens of the qual. Now you need to model the potential uplift for these initiatives so you can have a sense of the potential revenue uplift it can have. Now, I apologise now if I'm teaching you to suck eggs, but I wanted to briefly touch on the ROI modelling as it's a key part of DRUC. So you need to be able to run through a potential ROI for every recommendation or hypothesis or initiative that you've recognised. But this isn't science. This is about using common sense at this stage. You don't need to run in-depth modelling. Leave that to a business. If initiative is sizable, leave that and generate its own business case and deeper dive. Try to give each idea a priority grading, give each an indication of the speed to market, and then think about how much it will cost and the potential uplift and impact it can have for your business. So here's my maths tutor moment. I've always wanted to do this. Very simply, the revenue uplift divided by your initiative will give you that ROI ratio, or times it by the 100 to get a percentage figure. So for instance, something like this, if an initiative will cost 25,000, but the return is 150, you've got a 6-to-1 ratio or a 600%. So that's enough big maths from me. But once you've worked out your potential revenue uplift, what next? You know, this doesn't really give you a plan. How do you action all this? What are the dependencies and other factors? Which is why we've got the third part of DRUC, and that's about prioritization and the roadmap. And this stage is about putting the plan in place through an actionable roadmap. It's going to help determine initiatives and enhancements to prioritize. Now, some of them might have technical operational dependencies, which means the effort levels could render them less attractive. So this phase is going to help seek to provide a sense of direction for the roadmap. It will also help reduce conflicting views. So no longer will the hippo or the loudest voice in the room have their opinions first. It will help understand the business impact and also provide a priority scoring for you as well. And we determine this by looking at all your factors and calculating the business impact and the priority scores. And that's quite simply done by looking at the business impact score and then dividing that by the complexity, the speed, and the cost and scores as well. Don't worry, you don't need to worry about the math. What if I told you that there's a document that can help you with this? Well, we've got one, and we're totally willing to share it with you to help you with your prioritization too. It looks something like this. So it's not the most amazing thing to look at. It is a spreadsheet, but it's really easy to complete. And that's the key thing. And you can customize this for your organization too. The main thing is it can help you score. Sorry, got the sun calling. The main thing is it can help you score each initiative to determine the impact and the priority score too. In this example, I've just zoomed in here, you can fill out a number of factors on the left, and that's going to help you evaluate how important the initiative is. And these are simple sort of yes, no answers. So is the initiative a quick win? Does it affect particular journeys? Ideally, the more journeys it affects, the better. Is it mentioned in different research or reports or artifacts such as DRUC? Again, if it's mentioned in a number of things, then you obviously realise that it's quite an important initiative or recommendation to do. And then we move to the right side of that spreadsheet, and this is where the scoring elements are. And you can reference them bits on the left to influence these scores. So what's the potential commercial uplift? And this is a score out of 10. What is the heuristic value? Will it improve the experience? We've got one around speed. Does it reduce friction or improve performance? And these are all numbers out of 5. What is the effort value? You can ascribe a value such as perhaps if it costs under 5K to do, perhaps it's a 1. If it costs 20K, it could be 2. So, and then all the way up perhaps to 100K, and then anything above that may need its own business case. So you can work that out. And finally, it's the complexity. does it have any other dependencies or integrations that could make it more complex to deliver? So as long as you're consistent with your scoring across all your initiatives and these factors, then the business impacts, the ones I've circled in red, and the priority score calculations will then help you decide where to start. And it might get you out of that sort of paralysis and create an actionable plan. All this looks like theory, but it really isn't. This is all about analysing the data through different lenses. It's about forming hypotheses and recommendations to improve that uplift. And then it's about prioritising an action plan. And we would always back a document like this up with an evolving sort of deck with a single page for each initiative, a bit more visual with a background, hypothesis and opportunity, supported by the data and the ROI too. So that's the final piece. This is the final slide. I just thought I'd leave you with some final thoughts as well. We believe every business right now should be investing more in their digital channels. As I mentioned earlier, we believe you're the most valuable people right now in your organisation, the people who have the keys to the digital channels. So my three, I suppose, points around DRUC and how you can improve your channels is use DRUC, use this methodology to help analyse the qualitative and the quantitative to generate these ideas, new hypotheses, recommendations. This is common sense. This is not theory. Use a common sense approach to map out the ROI and the prioritisation to create a business case. And finally, be the CFO's best friend. Come up with a business case for the investment and show what that potential return could be. You've got the methodologies and then take action too. So thank you very much for your time today. I think I kept within around 27, 28 minutes. I hope that's helped you get an idea of how ORM and DCX can help drive action rapidly. If you want to know more, or if you just want the spreadsheet and a copy of this deck, please get in touch. It really can help sort of prioritise your initiatives.